What is happening out there, Roto Scouts football fans? Welcome to the Monday Nighter, gang. Decent little Dallas against the Chargers. Cowboys versus the Chargers. Dallas against Los Angeles, however you want to put it. Do you guys worry about that? If you say, like, the city, you have to say the other city. Team, you got to say the other team. Sometimes people freak out about that. I don't care. I mix them up all the time. You know, Chicago's playing the Astros. Dallas is playing the Chiefs or the Chargers, to use tonight's example. I don't really care about that. When I write, I try and do it like, keep it consistent. There's all sorts of rules for writing, but talking, come on, say whatever we want. We got Trey here on Monday night. Trey's here early. Trey says, no faith in my Cowboys. I fully expect Boy Wonder, a.k.a. Kellen Moore, to throw the ball everywhere and all game for a revenge narrative firing. Kind of like the LA Chargers. Defense versus Dak as well. I think the Chargers D could be an interesting wrinkle in the showdown kind of a sense. I don't know if I expect him to go out there and have like a really good game or anything, but Dak hasn't been very good this season. The Cowboys in general haven't been very good this season. And I totally agree with you that I think the Chargers are going to be throwing the ball everywhere. So I'm pretty much on board with you there, Trey. Throwbacks is here. What's up, Throwbacks? Yerp. Sure some other folks are hanging out. We've got a couple other people out there. Haven't said hi yet. Trey says, tells you how much faith I have in Dak. I tell you what, I'll trade you Danny Jones for him straight up right now. I would take that. I would drive Danny Jones to the airport and pack his bags for him. Pack his bags after I drive him. I'm going to put him on a plane to somewhere else. I'll send you his bags. They're worth more. Cujo Blues here. Cowboys win tonight, Trey. My Rangers are beating the Houston. See, that's a good example. My Rangers are beating the Houston. That threw me off, as we're talking about like whether to mix names or not. The Astros or just Houston would have been the way to go there. That one tripped me up a little bit. Nicely done, Cujo. I don't know if that was intentional, but that was funny. Throwbacks. Should we tank for the QB? I feel like a lot of people are going to be jumping on tanking bandwagons over the next couple of weeks. You're going to be in there with the Pats. That might be Bill's plan all along. Apparently, what's his face though? Caleb is now saying, "Hey, I can make my $2.5 million with the NIL, so I'm going to pick my team." So he's got a short list already of teams that he wants to go to. Otherwise, he'll just go back to school, is what he's allegedly threatening now. I don't really see it. That's not enough leverage. It's not really that much more leverage than like Eli had. And yeah, Eli got his way, but he went into the draft, he went through the system, and then forced his hand and forced the team to trade him. He wasn't trying to make demands before the draft, or they were hinting at it, but he wasn't doing it as bluntly, and he certainly wasn't doing it with, I can make money elsewhere involved. The NFL's not going to take too kindly to that if that kid continues doing that. So I wouldn't mess with it too much if I were him. If you want to play that card, but don't be out there trying to make a thing about it. They could Kaepernick him really easily. Not that it's the same issue by any means. I mean, Kaepernick was doing a totally different thing and blackballed for a totally different reason. But that just shows how easily they can just say, "Hey, nobody signed this kid." Throwbacks says, seen him play live twice versus the Falcons. Dennis is here. Den says, Jets might trade Aaron Rodgers for Dak. He should be back for the Cowboys playoff run. Yeah, I saw some lunatic yesterday. Some Jets fan on Twitter, just some random person that their tweet landed in front of me. They were, if Rodgers can make it back by week 14. I'm like, dude, tore his Achilles at age, 41? He's not coming back for week 14. I don't care how many magic chants they say around his ankle. I don't care if he brings Mr. Miyagi back from the dead to do the hands over his leg thing. He's not coming back. It's craziness. And by the way, the Jets aren't making the playoffs. I don't care how good that defense is. And we were on that play. We were saying, not the play, but we were saying, Jets are going to hold down those Eagles. They're not making the playoffs. Not with Zach Wilson at your quarterback. I've seen enough to know. Trey says Cooper Rush season 4-1 last year. Just saying. Oh, you chill. Joker apparently doesn't like what I said about the Jets. Maybe he's a closet Jets fan this whole time. Anyway, let's get into this one a little bit. Should be a good one, hopefully. I feel like I say that every time we have a showdown slate, and they all kind of fall apart. These primetime games tend to kind of suck. But at least we actually do have two, if not good, decent teams Two teams that certainly know how to disappoint their fan bases in some ways, lose games in creative fashion. Two teams that have a lot of very good skill players on them, capable quarterbacks, what should be better defense than it's been on the Cowboys side. Cowboys pass D still ranks 13th, 6.3 yards per pass attempt, but they've been pretty bad since Diggs went out. And their rush D has been pretty lousy all year, 4.5 yards per rush attempt, 24th in the league. So there's a decent amount of upside here for the Chargers side of things. And Dallas has the weapons to hang in. I mean, Dak's got to have a good game. They've certainly got to keep him upright. And, but he's going to be throwing against the 29th ranked 7.6 yards per pass attempt defense. And it's not like they're bottling up the run, 4.1 yards per rush attempt, 18th overall. So there's going to be opportunity galore on both sides. It's just, do the Cowboys disappoint again, or do they actually put things together and come through and utilize some of these weapons this week? Tony Pollard's been a letdown. CeeDee Lamb's been a letdown. Brandon Cooks has been a major letdown. Their best player on offense this year might be Jake Ferguson. But they've got weapons. The kickers are in play. The defenses, I do think the Ds are in play just on the virtue of, big play potential. Showdown slate. But I would probably lean more kickers if I'm going away from the skill players and the quarterbacks. I think we're looking at some scoring here. Vegas likes it, 50-point total, 2-point spread. Vegas likes this one for some scoring. So while we can get to the defenses, I don't think, unless you get that broken play defensive score kind of a thing, that's somewhat obvious, but not always lately. Low-scoring games, these defenses have been hanging in. Even without, a couple of sacks, hold them to 12 points kind of a thing. Would you shut up? Go lay down. Such a jerk. EMAC is here. You got to giddy up before you can gallop. Yeah, the Cowboys have had a bit of a hitch in their giddy up lately, as they say, EMAC. I don't know what's going on over there. How's the campaign going, EMAC? Got all sorts of political questions that I'm not going to ask. EMAC says, thank you. I'll be here all week. The 7:30 show is different from the 10 p.m. show. Try the veal, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Everybody's happy to see EMAC here. So, let's get into this one a little bit, gang. Shall we? We'll do this. We'll go player by player as we normally do, and then we'll build a couple quick lineups. We'll punch out of here with about an hour before lock to build some lineups. By the way, if you haven't used the tools over at AceMind yet, check them out. Our pals, acemind.io, friends of the site. No money involved in giving them plugs, but been enjoying using their products for the last couple of slates. Delivered some interesting results for me over the weekend. So I kind of am enthusiastic about giving those guys a couple of plugs. So check them out. They've got sims up for DraftKings and FanDuel. Showdown slates, full slates, basketball coming later in the fall. All that good stuff. Haven't run any sims, so I just kind of popped into my head to mention them. I don't actually have any sim data to share with you guys because I haven't run any sims for this slate yet, but popped in my head to mention them. Herbert going up against the D that's allowed 6 touchdowns. On the other side, Dak's going up against the defense that's allowed 7 touchdowns, but they're also allowing almost 300 yards per game through the air, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Let me get back to the other board. This is the one I rely on a little bit more. 7.6 on this board, 6.9 on that board. I don't know how you measure yardage per pass attempt differently, but whatever. I know that this one is the, I think, more accurate one. Defensive ADOT, again, both these teams allow deep passes. They both throw the blitz at the quarterback a decent amount of the time, gain 21% pressure on the Dallas side of things, 20.6% on the Chargers side. It's not overwhelming pressure coming at these quarterbacks. There are good defensive skill players on the Dallas line for sure, but there's the opportunity that Herbert's going to be able to fling the ball around wherever he wants. He's already throwing the ball 36 times a game versus the 32 times a game that Dak's throwing the ball. He's completing more of his passes, 7 touchdowns on the year to only 1 interception, and 8.8 yard intended air yards per attempt, completing 4.6 with a 7.6 yards per pass attempt overall. Very solid numbers out of Justin Herbert. He's thrown the ball 22 times in the red zone. Dak's thrown the ball 32 times in the red zone, only come up with 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions so far on the season. 6.5 intended air yards per attempt. Not really airing the ball out that much. They're not taking many deep shots. He's only thrown one ball over 40 yards this year. Only taking 3 attempts beyond 30 yards. Not really slinging it, airing the ball out. A lot of short attempts. Some pretty low ADOTs for some of these receivers. Mamba jumps in. Mamba says, I wish I could get a free trial, Terry. Not sure how they compare, but may just have to take your word on their Sims tool. Hey, listen, I'm just jumping into it myself, but it seems very, very good. The pricing, I believe, is significantly lower. You could probably get a free look at sort of the look and feel of it, and you'd have to ask those guys, and they may be around. They're definitely in my Discord, and I can hook you up with a link to their Discord, I'm sure. But if you ask them, they are part of the community that was part of the Stochastic community back to the Awesemo days, and they're around here. So those guys may be willing to cut you out one, or they've had their tools up on GitHub for quite a while now. Different version within native in Python, so you have to be able to type a Python command to be able to use those. But if you check those out, I think you can at least get a feel for what the results are going to look like, what your outputs are going to be, things like that. But I would encourage you to check them out. I mean, you pop in for a month, you don't like it, you pop out. But it's very easy to use. I've been enjoying it, like I said. And you can just in the ability, even if you don't use the sim data, the ability to create, say it's a 330,000 entry pool like the FanDuel tournament, the main slate was over the weekend. I was citing stats across millions of lineups because within 3 minutes, I can create 300,000 lineups that are unique. So just that power alone, just the ability to create that many lineups that quickly has power. And then you can evaluate it however you want. I was telling Dennis, XX Cubs fan, last night for the Showdown slate, I actually took the results. I simmed it out 3 times, ran it. I built 4,500 lineups for the Showdown slate, ran those against 150,000 sims of the contest across 3 different sim builds. So running it against 3 different pools, 150,000 total times. Then I sorted the results by ROI for the top lineups, and I put the sorted version. Well, I grabbed 100 of them, color coded them, put them into my lineups for the night, and then I took took everything, put it into my traditional sorting process, the old sorting table that you guys have seen before, sorted it, and it was, I think, 63 out of the top 100 were already in my top 100. And then out of the next 50 that I grabbed, a bunch of those probably would have been the highest sim results anyway. So I bring that up because it's validating for me in the process. We were getting to the right lineups anyway. But it's just to also say that, there's multiple ways around these problems. So whatever fits you best. But for me, just the ability to, if I can knock out those thousands and thousands of lineups that quickly, and then know that I can just port those over in an emergency into my normal sorting process, has tremendous value to me. So I think things like that are underrated about some of those ways, even if you don't use the sim data. Anywho, little plug for our pals who are smart and actually monetize their content. 3 rush touchdowns on the season for Justin Herbert. Not really his, primary focus out there. Gaining 2.8 yards per rush attempt on 5 attempts a game, 55 total yards on the season. Dak only running the ball 2.4 times a game, 45 total yards. He gains a little bit more. He has not scored. I don't think we're really looking to either one of these quarterbacks for their legs. We're really looking for them to be throwing the ball and connecting with some of their skill players that we'll get to in a second. We got to talk about these skill players first. In the running game, let me make sure I didn't miss any key notes on. I don't think I did. We all know that the Chargers are going to be playing pretty fast-paced, pretty pass-happy. That's just the nature of that offense this year. Herbert's coming in with a fractured finger, but it's on the non-throwing hand from week 4. They're also coming off a bye week. I like the bye week potentially for getting Quentin Johnston involved. We'll talk about that in a second too. But Herbert should be fine. I have no issues with rolling him out there, expecting him to be 100%. He wasn't taking snaps under center in practice, but he's going to be operating just like normal, and it's the non-throwing hand, so it's just not a concern for me. Dallas pass D's falling apart without Diggs, as I mentioned. Last time out, 13 of 24 for 167, 1-1. But weeks 2 and 3, he was over 300 yards both of weeks 2 and 3. Week 3, he had the monster game, 405 yards and 3 touchdowns, 40 of 47. That's the kind of upside we've got. That's the kind of ceiling we're looking at for Justin Herbert. Gotta love the option. On Dak's end, he threw 3 interceptions the last time out, only 14 of 24 for 153. Had a touchdown. That was the game against San Francisco. Maybe somewhat forgivable, but he hadn't been good before that. He had an okay week 4, 28 of 34 for 261 yards and a touchdown, 25 of 40 for 249, a touchdown and an interception against Arizona. His best game of the year was against the Giants, but so was everybody's. 31 of 38 that week, 255 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Week 1, no touchdowns, no picks, 143 yards on 13 completions, 24 pass attempts. He's kind of a okay quarterback. He's mid-ranked. I think his top finish was in the teens somewhere for fantasy. Again, just low intended air yards per attempt. Not a ton of results for the Cowboys passing game, which is why we're kind of interested in Tony Pollard a little bit here. 68% of the snaps on average, carrying the ball 16.2 times a game, targeted another 4 times a game. So we're talking about a running back. Anytime that we can get a running back with 20 touches, I'm very interested. Regardless of format, regardless of team, regardless of matchup. If you are a running back who is going to touch the ball 20 times and you have demonstrated any kind of ability in the past, I'm interested. And Tony Pollard has more than demonstrated ability. That said, hasn't been great this year. Certainly hasn't really paid off his very, very high season-long draft status or draft slot or whatever we're calling it. Last time out, 8 carries, 29 yards. Also added 4 of 5 in the pass game for 35 yards. Ran 17 routes on 34 snaps. He's had 1 week over 100 rush yards. That was also the only time he's been over 75 rush yards. He's a regular target in the offense. Minimum of 3 targets on the season. He had 3 targets 3 times. He had 5 targets and 8 targets in the other games. I do think he's your top back. Obviously on the Dallas side, he's the number 2 back overall with Austin Eckler coming back into this game. I prefer the Eckler side of it, assuming we're getting full strength Eckler, which I think we have to assume at this point. He's been practicing. He's been out since week 1. So it's probably 1, 2 in terms of the running backs, but it's pretty close. Especially if Eckler's still going to share some of the carries with Kelly. In that week 1 game, Eckler saw 51% of the snaps. Kelly had 49%. Eckler had a game. Kelly also had a game. That was Kelly's best game of the season when he was out there with Eckler splitting some of the carries. That first week, Eckler went for 117 and a touchdown, plus 4 of 5 through the air for another 47 yards on 23 routes. And if you've forgotten how good he is, last year, 1,600 combined yards and 18 touchdowns. So he's pretty good. Kelly, though, that first week when Eckler was in, Kelly carried the ball 16 times that week. 91 yards and a touchdown on basically half the snaps. So, I mean, there is a little bit of upside there. There is the potential coming back from injury, first game back. Maybe he draws some of the snaps away from what we could normally expect from Eckler, but Eckler's an absolute stud out there. So you definitely load up on him. He's going to be super popular on both sides, but you can play shares of Eckler for sure. You can play shares of Pollard. Both of those are premium options that'll be very popular. And then I think you still can go to Josh Kelly. I would expect a little less. I don't think we're expecting a ton of looks for him, but he's got the talent to break one. The thing is, he wasn't good while Eckler was out. Last time out, 38 snaps, 17 carries, just 65 yards, 11 carries for 12 yards, 13 carries for 39 yards. His best week was that week 1. Coming off a bye, a little time to scheme, a little time to design plays. Hey, we've run this, over here with Austin, so they're not going to be expecting this gadget play with Josh. They've also got Isaiah Spiller there. Pretty limited. Might be involved a little bit in the passing game. 15 snaps, 5 carries for 12 yards, plus 2 of 2 for 15 yards on 8 routes run. He ran 6 routes and had 2 carries on 15 snaps in week 3. I don't think he's got much of a role. Showdown slate, a couple of snaps. I prefer to roll those dice with receivers, where at least if you're getting your 2 targets, one of them still might be 35 yards downfield and into the end zone, where if Isaiah Spiller just touches the ball 5 times, all those might be on the wrong side of the 50. So Spiller's a very limited option. It's kind of the same with all of Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and Hunter Lepke in decreasing order. Rico had 5 carries for 15 on 10 snaps last week. Did not catch his lone target. He had 3 carries in week 4, 1 target, 3 targets on 7 routes run for 3 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown in week 3. That's probably your ceiling. That's Rico. He also had 4 carries for 21 yards in that game. So that week 3 game was his high point. So again, that was 3 catches, 25 yards and a touchdown through the air, plus 4 carries for 21 yards. That is probably your absolute ceiling for Rico Dowdle. Deuce, 3 carries for 7 yards last week, 1 of 1 through the air for 1 yard. 8 carries for 9 yards in week 4, 1 of 1 for 2. Snaps. His snap count for Deuce Vaughn, snaps each week have gone 8, 13, 0, 21, and 5. Limited options. Even more limited as you get to Hunter Lepke, but he's a big body. They were actually expecting, or at least there was some buzz that maybe he was going to touch the ball a few times if they got in close against San Francisco, just on the virtue of being a big body. He didn't touch the ball. He's had 3 carries all season. Snap counts have been 3, 17, 8, 14, and 6. No carries that last time out against San Francisco. Extraordinarily limited. Probably just needs to be able to get the ball near the goal line and punch it in. That's your only path to success with Hunter Lepke, is like that 1-yard touchdown run. I think David Figueroa is here. Parham lock. Another 2 touchdown game out of Donald Parham. Charles Moran. I get they don't want to abuse the running back game in the 17-game season, but geez, the running game popping. Elderberry? Trey? Elderberries? Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. Emac knows the movie. So, on the running backs, I assume the popularity goes 1, 2 as well. Whichever one of these guys is lower owned, I'm kind of a little bit more into, but I'll have tons of both of those guys. I'll have maybe a sprinkling of these two, but very, very limited, just showdown shares, dart throw type shares, looking for the touchdown only. Maybe a little of Kelly, not that much of Spiller or Lepke. Through the air, another spot where the Cowboys really disappointing. You realize that CeeDee Lamb has gone 3 straight weeks with just 4 catches each week? 4 of 5 for 49 last week on 27 routes run, 34 snaps. 4 of 6 the week before. Had a touchdown that week to cover it up fantasy-wise, but only 4 catches, 36 yards. Had a carry for 12 more yards that week. In week 3, 4 of 7 for 53 yards. That is pretty limited targets, pretty limited for a premium receiver, for a guy who's considered a top, number 1 kind of a guy. It's fairly limited targets and definitely really limited output, but they're not getting any help from any of these other guys. Brandon Cooks missed week 2. Last week he had 1 catch on 4 targets for 7 total yards. He ran 24 routes on 32 snaps. Was targeted 4 of those 24 routes and only came up with 1 of them for 7 yards. It's just a pathetic game. Week 4, 49 snaps, ran 30 routes, went 4 of 4, caught all four balls they threw to him. 27 yards, no score. Week 3, caught 2 of 7 targets for 17 yards on 35 routes run. His high game for the season was that 4 of 4, 27-yard game. Hasn't scored, hasn't done anything out there. This is a guy who I was kind of looking forward to playing as a sneaky Cowboys receiver this year. Or maybe not sneaky, but a good second option. It's really, really disappointing so far for Cooks. He's 2 years removed from his last 1,000-yard season. He had 90 catches for 1,037 yards and 6 touchdowns with Houston 2 years ago. 81 catches for 1,150 and 6 the year before that. Last year he dropped to 57 catches, 699 yards and 3 TDs, but that was in only 13 games. Give him a few more games, he's closing in on that 1,000. He's closing in on his 6 TDs, so probably would have been a fairly similar year. But he's had 6 seasons of at least 1,000 yards. He's 30, so we're trending toward the back end of the career for a wide receiver, but didn't think he was going to be this shot, that's for sure. Michael Gallup, last time out, 2 of 5 for 15 yards. Put up 60 yards in week 4. Caught 5 of 6 passes on 25 routes run, 37 snaps. Week 3, put up 92 yards, but has not scored a touchdown all season. The 92 yards came on 6 catches, 7 targets on 37 routes run, 51 snaps that week. They've got other options like Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert was a 3rd-round pick last year, hasn't really hit. Last week he ran 22 snaps with the offense. Had 23 snaps in week 4, 12 in week 3, 56 in week 2 when Cooks was out, 16 in week 1. His route run share, though, he ran 32 routes that week that Cooks was out. So he saw 56 snaps, ran 32 routes that week. His route shares the rest of the season, starting in week 1, 3, then the 32, and 5, 7, and 9. So he's not even getting many routes, let alone targets. He was untargeted on all 9 of those routes last week. Tolbert is very limited involvement. Kevonta Turpin, kind of a weapon. They've been kind of using him in a gadget role. He also returns kicks and punts, so you've got that breakaway potential. Last week, he only ran 2 snaps with the offense. He ran routes on both. They targeted him once. He caught it for 26 yards and a touchdown. That's the showdown style guy that we need. He's had carries in addition to some targets in 3 of their 5 games. In week 4, he broke a 46-yard carry the one time he carried the ball. It's a good, gadget weapon type of a player to pop into a showdown lineup, especially when you're getting him so cheap. $1,600, $2,400. Yeah, he's not Tolbert pricing. He's not Luke Schoonmaker pricing. But that's pretty cheap for a guy with that kind of dynamic upside. Big play upside for that price goes a long, long way on showdown. Hell, even just the kick returning upside. Pair him with the D. Couple of times, not many. Ferguson, one of my favorite targets in this offense, also one of Dak's favored targets in this offense. They were looking his way a lot in the first few weeks in the red zone. Last week, he went 3 of 3 for 28 yards. Disappointing output. The week before that, 7 targets, 7 catches, 77 yards. Ran 25 routes on 39 snaps. 26 routes on 50 snaps in week 3. 5 of 7 for 48 yards. He had a touchdown in week 2. And what's most important to me, especially when we start talking on tight ends, in the red zone, he didn't get targeted last week, but they were kind of limited last week in that game. His red zone targets, week 1, 5, then 3, then 1, then 2. So that every week, basically, they're looking his way in the red zone. In a game, in a format where we're just touchdown hunting, I don't mind that at all. And I like going to tight ends in this in showdown formats. Luke Schoonmaker, 20 snaps, just ran 5 routes, targeted once in week 5. His route run totals have been 2, 4, 3, outlier with 13 routes in week 4, and then 5. But he hasn't really been targeted. 0, 1, 1, 3, and 1 targets those weeks, and he's caught 1 pass. The 1 catch that he had in week 2 was for a 1-yard touchdown. There is that. Again, when we're touchdown hunting, it's really, really thin when you're trying to book it for that little opportunity, right? We look at how many compound things needed to happen before we got to that touchdown that came several weeks ago on 1 target that he had that week. If he does that, it's potentially slate changing at 200, 300. Whether or not he can do that, whether or not they even look his way, very, very, very limited option. Total dart throw. A lot more faith in the overall pass. Well, I shouldn't even say it that way because I have a lot of faith just in a vacuum in these 2 receivers at the very least. I think Gallup is interesting. Looking at some of the numbers on the ADOT side of things, Gallup 10.9 yard ADOT, Cooks operating downfield at 12.3. But remember, Dak's not taking a lot of those big shots down the field. So that has a limiting effect on these guys. CD only working at an 8.1 yard ADOT, but he's putting up 10.23 yards per target to lead the team. 5.3% of the air yards, but 21% of the total targets. Tolbert's seen a couple looks down the field. Turpin typically gets the ball in close and have him try and do something with it. But it's been limited. Those red zone targets, there you go. To put a fine point on it. 10 for Ferguson. Next highest is CD with 4. And then Turpin's seen 4. So Turpin's out targeted Brandon Cooks when they've been in the red zone. These are important details for a showdown slate. Schoonmaker's been targeted 3 times in the red zone. He's got that 1-yard touchdown. But this is interesting, and this is interesting because these guys aren't going to be at least not as popular as the CDs, the Cookses, the Pollards. And those are the guys, if they get in the end zone, that win you these tournaments. All right. As I was saying, I do have a little bit more faith, at least in the delivery of yardage, if nothing else, in the Chargers passing attack. Keenan Allen is an absolute beast. Premium option. Last time out, only 3 of 5 for 32 yards and a touchdown. Did have a touchdown in week 4. That was with Mike Williams out the first time. Had a monster game in week 3. 18 catches on 20 targets, 215 yards. Didn't score, but his target shares are there. 9, 10, the monster 20 target game, and then 5 the last time out. The question comes down the depth chart. Josh Palmer's been the guy who kind of was seeing targets with Williams in and then stepped into a little bit of an uptick the last time out. He's questionable with a groin, but expected to play. Last time out, he went up to 8 targets, caught 3 of them, put up 77 yards on 32 routes run, 55 snaps. He saw 39 snaps in week 3. That, again, they were coming off a bye, so that was week 4. In week 3, with Williams healthy, saw 39 snaps, ran 27 routes, 4 catches on 7 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown. The presumptive number 2 for target share, but I do think Quentin Johnston, the kid who's built like a premium receiver, who's got the skills of a premium receiver, who they spent some draft capital on, and they've just completely limited his opportunities so far. Coming off the bye, with Williams out, he did see an uptick to 32 snaps the last time out. So you'd like to think that with the bye week built in, more time to practice, more time to scheme for him, get him involved, get him up to speed, whatever the issue was. My point is, hopefully they've gotten past it and we can use Quentin Johnston here, because I really like the frame. I like the skills. I really hope they get him involved a little bit. I also like the price, 42.6 and 63 on DK, 8,000 on FanDuel, totally playable when these guys are here. It's the same price as Michael Gallup. I'll take that shot. But so far, only 29% of the snaps on average. He's running routes on 70% of those snaps. They're putting him out there in the opportunities where they might throw him the ball, but they're only targeting him on 19% of those 70% routes. It's been kind of limited. It's amounted to 3 targets a game. 10-yard A-Dot is a downfield weapon. It's been targeted a couple of times in the red zone. Twice in the red zone. Again, another, he's 6'3", 6'4", something like that. Big kid. Parham had the 2 touchdown game. Let's all keep in perspective that came on his only 2 targets. 2 targets, 2 catches, 4 yards, 2 touchdowns. 17 routes run, 33 snaps that week. Parham's snap counts have gone 36, 31, 33, and 14. He came out with a wrist the last time around. He was questionable, but should be good to go. The backup tight ends, Stone Smart and Trey McKitty, split the snaps last time. Smart ran 25 snaps with the offense. He's down here. Doesn't project for anything. I'm probably just taking these guys out unless Parham doesn't play. But I figured I would talk about him real quick in case Parham doesn't go. So Smart ran 25 snaps with the offense that week. Ran 5 routes, 0 for 1 for 0 yards. He's had 1 catch for 24 yards all season. His snap counts have gone 4, 22, 15, and 25. He's run 1, 9, 10, and 5 routes. He's been targeted twice all year. Trey McKitty, 22 snaps the last time out, ran 3 routes, was not targeted. His snaps have gone 5, 3, 10, and 22. His route running has gone 0, 1, 1, and 3. He has no catches, no yards, no touchdowns all season. Pretty limited. They're only 200, 300. If they're going to be in the game, maybe you can mix them in. But I think it's at tight end. You're dealing with Gerald Everett. You're dealing with Donald Parham. For Everett, who looks like I accidentally skipped over in my notes. But fortunately, I can pull him up here real quick to get his target shares. Did I skip over? Did I just write? No, I completely skipped over him. What a jerk. 44 snaps. Last time out, he ran 20 routes. He was targeted twice. Caught them both for 9 yards. Has no touchdowns on the season. Receiving high came in week 3, 6 of 6 in that Minnesota game. Only put up 30 yards, no touchdown. His red zones. Oops. Where is that? There it is. Targeted once each, weeks 2 and 3 in the red zone. Another guy that if they get in close, they absolutely might be looking Gerald Everett's direction. The lead tight end in the offense, 4,600, 6,900 on DK, 75 on the FanDuel slate. I just prefer the wideouts here. And then I think if I'm going to tight end, one of the things that I tend to do is just drop down to the cheaper option, the guy who's going to be less likely to be targeted, but also a lot less likely to be owned, and he comes cheaper. I do that a lot with offenses. On the Cowboys side, I won't be doing that all that much because I just like the opportunities that Jake Ferguson gets in the red zone. But with Everett Parham, I think you can make that switch and you save a few bucks. But really for me, it's Keenan Allen all day. Definitely some Josh Palmer, but I kind of prefer Quentin Johnston. Might be overthinking it. Might be trying to will something into existence with targets that he's not going to be getting. But I think that is a good way to spend some shares, and one of the more sound risks to take overall. Charles Moran says Eckler a captain candidate. I think he's definitely a captain candidate. He's probably one of the more popular captains on the entire slate. If I remember correctly, when I was looking at some ownership numbers, the quarterbacks were below these primary skill players on DK. We're all owned more than these two, which is appropriate, which is how it should be. The skill players pay off in the captain spot more frequently because they're less expensive. They don't give you the big multiplier. We've talked about that a bunch. So you wanted to see Austin Eckler in that spot, huh? He's kind of pricey. I'll tell you that much. He's more expensive than the quarterbacks. So that's going to be limiting. So we'll say it's Eckler day on that side, and then we'll have to get Dak involved with some of his pass catchers. I got to go to Cooks. I could go CD, but if I go CD there, we're already down to $4,700 per spot. That basically forces us. We could go. What happens if we go Ferguson next? 45. We're basically looking like Cowboys wipeout. You go Cowboys D. This is ugly. I already hate this lineup. 5,200. You've got a decent amount to spend. Just pop the kicker in there. That was duped 27 times, and I hate it. I didn't mean to build that lineup. I just wanted to see what could fit in there. So you can get Dak and CD in there. Let's go a little bit more evenly built, though. What if we didn't go Dak? What if we said... Oops. What was my Herbert shares do? 48? Yeah, you can get Herbert. And Johnston, 54. We're back to that, so you can get Ferguson in there. Meh, don't love it. Yeah, see, Eckler's pricey and popular in that spot. That's what really hamstrings us here. Trey says the Cowboys kicker a must with their red zone issues. Yeah, anytime you get a team that is capable of bringing the ball down the field and then gets just kind of bottled up inside the 20, definitely is upside for opportunities. Anybody who's getting opportunities is always in consideration. It's the same thing with if I know a running back's going to touch the ball 20 times. I don't really care what name's on the back of the jersey. I just want the volume. In a sport with such limited opportunities, and that's why, in the course of doing the shows, I kind of made the decision to try and talk about things a little bit more in just raw numbers rather than what a lot of people do, which is ranking or percentages, because they're fairly meaningless when we get such small samples. There's 17 games a year. There's 60 plays a game. That doesn't really give you a lot of actual data to work with. So a lot of football data becomes very meaningless, or a lot of what the numbers actually mean. You say, oh, this guy ran routes on 50% of their snaps, and he was targeted on 25% of his routes. And then you come to find out that amounts to 4 targets. It's just not a lot of opportunities. So football is just a game where we're hunting for opportunities. It's the king. Volume is king. For receivers, the nature of their opportunities matters. The downfield targets, the red zone targets. But particularly at running back, we are looking for volume. I still haven't liked one of these ones that we've built with him. Get cute with it and go like Turpin. And then kind of we just want to go back to Pollard there. There you go. Top two skill players against the defense. I don't love that. Go CD. There's a ton of money to spend in this one now. Just back to the Cowboys wipeout, which I don't really see being the correct direction for this game. Go like cheapo with Palmer. That's kind of viable. I don't love it because we're taking the Cowboys defense, which I don't really. What can I get in that instead of that? 6,000. You take either one of the kickers. Just do that. That's okay. Do you have anything for 26 that's more likely? You pop Parham in there if you wanted to, instead of Turpin as your dark guy. It gets you up to 9, a little bit more popular. What do we have? 26. So we can't get to the Chargers D. You go Dowdle if you wanted. You could go Deuce if you wanted. Tolbert, Turpin, that's all there, obviously. All these guys are like outside of Turpin. Let's do a different one. I'm going to spend all our time on that. 713, jeez. All right, we'll do one more of these. Let's go with one that I would maybe build. Oh, I meant to put Dak in there, not Pollard. 86. Get really weird with the passing game there. And then 10-2 to do basically whatever you want. Except for Eckler. Actually, what happens if I go Johnston, Eckler? This will be popular. 6,000 left. Eh. $64 for Kelly. That's no good. Let's get Eckler out of there then. Johnston, Herbert. Where was I going before? Palmer. So you do that and then something weird with the rest of this money. If you wanted. I still don't love that though. This is basically just like a broken Justin Herbert stack where most people would put him up there or Dak up there. You got the cheapo tight end with a ton of red zone targets there. Get some good skill around Herbert. And then we've got kind of a wild card spot here with this 66. If I didn't go with Johnston and I went with like Parham there, that gives us 86. Which still really doesn't make a difference. It's kind of a no man's land. Right? We peak at 7,000 here among like the non-premium guys. And then there's a gap to 9. There's nobody in the 8s. That's what's making this challenging. There's not like a good like guy in between the top guys and the like mid-range guys. There's no, I don't like that. I mean, you could go like total wipeout. Leave 1,600 on the table. You got Herbert +3. And then just Dak and Ferguson doing their thing. Not my favorite version of this lineup either. Herbert with his 2 more realistic targets gives you 38. You go them against the Dallas D. That doesn't really align all that well. You'd be rooting for a low-scoring game in which Dallas got to Herbert a bunch of times and he threw exactly 1 touchdown maybe to each of these guys, or just yardage-based. It's not that it can't win. It's also going to be duped 20 times. Not great. Mamba asks, do you run through a game script before you build your lineups or just let the data make the decisions? For the most part, let the data make the decisions, but I'm always thinking about, what's the environment, what's the game total, what's the line. So not necessarily like a script of like, all right, I think they're going to come out, they're going to run the ball, 10 of 15 plays on the first drive, and then that's going to lead to this. And I don't get nearly as deep as that, but I'll obviously think about, all right, Vegas has this one at a 36-point total versus Vegas has this one at a 50-point total, where the scoring is going to be or what the spread looks like. They expect a close game, so both teams are going to have to compete. Close game, close spread, high total is ideal. Wide spread, low total is unideal. And we analyze in between those, basically. Mamba says, I just don't see a path where CD doesn't play as well as Tyreek did against them. He runs better routes. I mean, he's just, I want to see more volume. 4 catches a game, 3 straight weeks, limited target shares. Again, his targets have been, and he is a premium talent. He is their number 1, but 5 targets last time, 6 the week before that, 7 the week before that, 4 catches each week. Declining numbers. He's the guy they're going to throw to. I have no issue saying that he's their most likely option for 10 targets and giving you a big game and a touchdown and everything you need. I'll have tons of them. I'm just not as enthusiastic. Michael Knack says Pollard is a must. Hasn't been. He's been pretty not good. 8 carries for 29 yards last week. 4 of 5 for 35 on 17 routes. No scores. That's not going to get you there for $14,000 on FanDuel and $9,600 on DK. Let's build a FanDuel lineup real quick and get out of here. I got some lineups to get built. What would I do with a FanDuel lineup? Shit. I think I forgot to put my placeholders in again. Hopefully this didn't fill. These have been slow to fill outside of that 1 week where I got frozen out. Yep, plenty of spots left. Instead of making you watch me build a lineup on my phone, I'm just going to put in bottom salary guys. I always recommend actually building a real lineup as your placeholder, which I rarely ever actually do. But do as I say, not as I do with this one. The last thing you want is to run into a situation where you miss lock for whatever reason. I think we've all had that happen. Although it's been a while. Knock on wood. But the last thing you want is to go into that and just have it all min salary guys, a bunch of guys with red not playing if you're on FanDuel or IL, whatever the IR, whatever the injury status is. You just want to have a lineup that's at least viable should the worst happen. Let's say you're walking across the street and you slip on some ice and you break your leg and you're in the hospital and all of a sudden it's 6:59 and you say, oh shit, my FanDuel lineups. At least you know you've got a 150 lineup train that's well built and has a shot rather than something that just has no chance of competing. So as I'm saying that, I'm putting in this. So as I said, do as I say, not as I do. Drummond, Smart, Cropper, Brooks, and Lance. Don't think that one's going to win. So in the interest of getting me out of here so that I can replace that with real lineups, let's take a look at some FanDuel stuff. I just kind of want to get away from the most popular captain. You're really cute with it. Not that's the thing. It's the FanDuel one's so much worse in terms of doing this with the analysis because like you put Quentin Johnston up there, who's totally viable in that role. The salary doesn't change, so it doesn't have any real downstream impact. You're just throwing darts at low-owned guys who might score and might have a good game. But that does have the effect of the lion's share of MVP ownership on FanDuel goes to these 5 guys. Or, excuse me, those 6 guys. And then everybody else, even Palmer, Cooks, guys who are actually involved, guys who are actual talents, the defenses, the kickers, everybody drops. Everybody becomes much, much easier to get to in that MVP role. Obviously, it's because these salaries don't multiply, and these are the guys with the most likely opportunities. But as we've talked about a million times on Showdown, we're looking for the possible, not the most probable, not the safest. And with that rant over, we obviously want his quarterback along with him. We'll take Dak for a little bit of passing upside. We'll take Cooks because nobody likes him. And that leaves me with 16 grand. I can do whatever I want. You want another copy of Herbert? You can have him. You want Eckler? Oh, you can't get Eckler. Eckler is the one thing I can't have. Or Keenan Allen. Oh, no, I can't have Keenan Allen. That's not going to be duped? Well, shit. There's your FanDuel lineup. Oh, actually, I forgot to change the entries. How many entries are there tonight? 92, 592. It's going to be even less duped. That's interesting. I am surprised that comes up that low owned, especially when it spends exactly your salary. It's probably going to be duped. I mean, especially now. Mama says, damn, that's actually not bad. Yeah. I'm going to change my placeholder right now. So if you play this lineup when it wins, you're going to be duped with me at the top on FanDuel. I'm telling you that right now. This is not an effort to collaborate. This is an effort to talk you guys out of playing these good lineups that I built so that I can have them. For any rule makers out there. I think that, as I've said before, I think that is actually the rule. You're not supposed to do things like this that would encourage collaboration, but we are in no way encouraging people to collaborate. We're actually saying do the exact opposite of collaborating and build as unique a lineup as you can. So I think we're okay. Let's wipe that out. Now that I've got it, everybody else can just rewind and freeze frame. Of course, when we did that last, what was that, Thursday? When I was enthusiastic about that DraftKings lineup, I think it came in just last, like dead last. Didn't actually, but it did not do well. That was that weird game, though. Hopefully we get a better game. That's all I want out of this one. Give me a good game where we actually get the shootout we're looking for, where we actually get a solid, 50-point Vegas game. Something. All right, one more quickie. Let's go with a more popular. Let's go with Keenan Allen up there. Herbert. I don't want to accidentally build the exact same lineup I just built, but just with reverse. Actually, that is an interesting. If you do. So just reversing those two. Same exact lineup, except you reverse. You go Keenan Allen in the MVP, Quentin Johnston in the flex. It goes to 41 times duped. Fairly popular lineup. This would not make my pool. If you go their quarterback, I suspect it gets even worse with Herbert up there. If you go Herbert, it's 1 in 1,500, 59 times duped. So just to illustrate how moving those guys around, even with the exact same core of players, even the same, literally same 5 guys, just move the lower owned guy into that MVP spot, especially when it's wide receiver. You're talking about guys who have the same role, not the same role, but play the same position, do similar things. That's an easy change to make to gain uniqueness. All right, let's do an Eckler, and then we're getting out of here for real this time. Eckler, Dak. No, Eckler, Pollard. Chargers D. Palmer. And Dicker. You do something crazy like that. Ew, that's even 19 times. Jesus. I mean, Jeebus. Jeezy crazy. Don't want to take certain people's Lord's name in vain. God knows with. Oh, did it again. With all the craziness that goes on, you certainly don't want to be out on the internet talking about anybody's religion. I don't care which one it is. Gallup. We haven't used any Gallup in this exercise. Got like a really weird one here. That doesn't make sense though with the Chargers D that much. I just want to get to something more unique with Eckler here. You go with like Eckler on top and a Cowboys blow up, but even that is crazy high owned. I don't even like that lineup, and it's popular. Just because it's difficult to get to, we could do this. And then like... All right, you can't get Turpin. Get Turpin. Take Dak out. There you go, like the all-skill player special. It's a weird one. Why did that not come up? Did I erase the dupes? No. Well, that's a weird one. That first one we built was pretty good. I like that one. With that in mind, guys, we're coming up on 7:30. I do have to get out of here. I do have to get some lineups built. Trey said Aubrey, Dallas kicker. I think that was the one that I grabbed there. Beantown. Chargers have played against horrendous defenses so far and have a bad defense. Eckler returning, in which Cowboys team will show. Finding this slate has a lot of unknowns. I agree with that. A lot of question marks for a slate with, fairly well-known, well-understood teams. Like not a lot of wild cards in terms of who these guys are, what their typical roles are, but a lot of underperformance. A lot of question marks in terms of where touches fall after the bye week with the Chargers side of things. There are definitely more wild cards than you would typically expect in this matchup for two teams that are fairly well established. Jake Swales belongs to the religion that worships the fat asses of women. And with that, folks, we're going to say goodnight. Good luck out there, gang. Hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate that. Follow the @RotoScouts Twitter handle. Retweet those things when they pop up. That helps us quite a bit. Actually gets it in front of some eyeballs. Really appreciate that. But you guys rock. Thank you for showing up. We'll see what content looks like over the next couple of days. Baseball, football, etc., etc. Basketball coming soon enough. Need to get a little time in working with the model. I opened that up for the first time the other day. But thank you guys. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. I will see you very soon.